Hello, my name is Marc Weiss, and I teach here at the University of La Verne, and I teach a number of courses, but the course I want to share with you is a course called Megaprojects in the Executive Management Certificate Program, and the certificate is Advanced Topics in Project Management. So what I want to do is give you a summary of what's in the class and hopefully pique your interest. And I'm hoping you will find it interesting enough to want to attend the program and the class. So this is the actual table of contents that we use for the course. We start off with an introduction of megaprojects, what they are, the size of the megaprojects industry and the growth, why people do megaprojects, and some of the reasons for growth in megaprojects. And then we go on from there and we cover what I'll call general characteristics of all megaprojects. It's a short section. And then we cover performance results. So up to date or historically or traditionally, how well have megaprojects performed? So after that, we go into a section on megaproject failures, and there are a lot of them. And so we start off with characteristics that are specific to failed megaprojects. That's the first thing that we do. And then there's 3 high-level examples of megaproject failures, very high level. And then we show a video, excellent video, on megaproject failures. And then we switch channels and we talk about megaproject successes. So conversely, we cover characteristics of megaproject successes, and then we cover 3 high-level examples of megaprojects that were successful, and then we show another video that contrasts the first video and suggests the ingredients to successful megaprojects. Excellent video. Then we have a case study. So the class breaks into teams where they evaluate a very complex megaproject and present their findings in class, and there's specific questions that are being asked. And so it's not a very successful megaproject, okay? And then we have a section called Additional Insights into Successful Megaprojects. And what we do there is we cover first, the work of the world's foremost author on megaprojects has recently written a new book, and so we present some of those very important techniques. And the second half of this section, we present a very successful megaproject. And so then the challenge is for all of the folks participating in the program to get back into their teams and to compare and contrast the case study, which was not a successful project, to the second project that's explained in detail that's very successful, and for them to be able to compare and contrast what makes for a successful megaproject and conversely what makes for a failed megaproject. And the idea is they will take those techniques with them back to their organizations to be able to help their organizations develop more successful megaprojects. And then the very last part is a summary and conclusion of the class. So what I've done is I've taken each one of these sections and I just show a slide or two to give you an idea of what the class is like. So let's take a look. Before we take a look, just real quickly, these are the appendices that are in the materials, in the digital materials you'll be given. And some of the feedback from the earlier classes is they did not want to cover what's referred to as traditional project management methodologies, or if you're familiar with the Project Management Institute or people with PMP certifications, it's called the PMBOK, or the Project Management Body of Knowledge. So they didn't want that. They wanted to understand all the techniques relative to this unusual animal called megaprojects. And so what we did is we put all of those materials in the appendices, but keep in mind they were added to and they'll serve as a fantastic reference for you going forward, but we don't cover them in any detail. Okay, so let's take a look. So first, there's a section that's an introduction, and I just, again, on each of these has just a slide or two. And first thing I wanted to share with you is there's a lot of material in all these slides. Not enough time to go through them bullet by bullet, but you take that back with you and they serve as a fantastic reference. And so what I like to do is take those subset of the bullets that are particularly important or relevant and talk about them. So for example, what I would say is on the fourth bullet down, one of the things, and there's not a universal agreement on what makes a mega project, but the most common definition is in US dollars, the project is $1 billion or larger. Takes many years to develop and build, involves many stakeholders. I don't know if you're familiar with what a stakeholder is. Marc's definition is any person or entity, or any people or entities that have a vested interest in the outcome of the project. So those are stakeholders. They're very transformational, and they typically impact millions of people. So now let's take a look at the section on characteristics of megaprojects. And again, I just picked a sample slide or two to give you an idea of what we cover. So there are a lot of materials in the course, like I mentioned. And where I see recurring themes, what I like to do is bold those particular words or sentences. So if we take a look down, you see complex or complexity. One of the most important characteristics that we have to deal with in megaprojects is the complexity and how to be able to adapt to the complexity. Very, very important. The other thing I just want to point out here is risk and uncertainty. All projects have risks, and in traditional PMBOK procedures or methodologies, we have risk management. We predict the outcome of something we could identify beforehand. So for example, if I have a factory, what's the probability that my factory is going to go on strike? That's a risk. And then what we do is we come up with a risk management mitigation plan. If my factory goes on strike, what's my mitigation plan? What am I going to do? That's and all projects, including mega projects, have risks. What makes a mega project unique is the word uncertainty. And what uncertainty is some authors refer to it as unknown unknowns, meaning I can't even identify what it is. If it happens, it could potentially have catastrophic results. Yet there's some techniques we cover in class to help us address those unknowns or unknowns that fall under the category of uncertainty. All right, let's take a look at the next performance results section of megaprojects. Share a slide or two. We start off and we talk about the traditional way all projects, including megaprojects, need to be measured. Sometimes referred to as the triple constraint or the iron triangle. We take a look at how well we did on cost, actual cost versus planned cost. Schedule, were we on time, were we ahead of time, or were we late or significantly late? And the third category is scope or quality, and as you all know, cost is a function of scope and time. So that's the first thing we take a look at. And the results are not good historically. We've had shortfalls of 50% or more, and the literature suggests that in the 70 years in the past we've looked at mega projects, we've had phenomenal shortfalls, and our projects have been unsuccessful with very large overruns. So one of the key authors in the domain of mega projects had some difficulties in years past categorizing and understanding successful projects because so many of the mega projects were unsuccessful. But that's changing now over time, and there's some really good techniques to help us be successful in mega projects. What he says, if you take a look at the last bullet, approximately 1 out of 10 mega projects is on budget, 1 out of 10 is on schedule, and 1 out of 10 is on benefits after the project goes live. And so if you calculate those numbers, it means only 1 out of 1,000 projects is a success. So there's a lot of good reason to be in a course like this, because we teach techniques on how to make our mega projects more successful going forward. The other thing that's suggested is we're at a critical juncture now time-wise. One of the authors referred to it as a tension point. However, the tradition is being challenged with really good reforms, so things are getting better. And there's light at the end of the tunnel, and the light isn't a train ready to hit you. It's some good techniques. So we explore characteristics of mega project failures in depth, and we learn from them. We explore characteristics of mega projects successes. And then there's also competency models for complex mega projects that we take a look at. So the next section is mega project failures. And so we take a look at characteristics of mega project failures. And again, there's a lot of slides and a lot of bullets, and I'll just cover a couple of them. So let's take a look at number 3, conflicting interest. This is huge in mega projects. The lack of stakeholder alignment when the major players aren't all working collaboratively towards a common goal is critical in terms of project failures. The next one, number 4, I'll just cover briefly, is uniqueness bias. One of the problems is traditionally everybody thinks their project is unique. And when you think your project is unique, guess what? You can't learn from other projects. And so one of the understandings we need to have, contrary to opinion, your project is typically not unique. And if it's not unique, then we can look at lessons learned from other mega projects to understand what to do and what to avoid. Okay, so that's uniqueness bias. And let's see, the other one I wanted just to mention is 8, black swans. And so that's the term for unknown unknowns, catastrophic events that can occur. And we cover techniques in the course on how to deal with black swans. Okay, so let's switch and let's take a look at a slide or two on mega project successes. And here you see a whole list of critical success factors for mega projects. And again, I'll just point one out. About halfway down the page, there's a bullet that says awarding bids to the right designers, contractors. So historically, what have we all done in terms of what was the main criteria we used for awarding a bid or a contract to a contractor? The lowest price. And what we found is buying just on price, or the lowest price, often results in some very negative things occurring on mega projects that actually contribute to their failures. Continuing on, another page, these are critical success factors, about 4 bullets down. Effective change management is so critical. So often you have a lot of changes in a project, let alone a mega project, and how you manage scope change and control that is critical to the success of mega projects, and we cover that in the class. Mutual trust, about 3/4 of the way down. All the stakeholders have to be working transparently towards the same common goal. And the last bullet I'll just share with you for a minute or so, strategic alignment of project goals with stakeholder interest. So there's a gentleman, his name is Keith Sibley. He was the program manager for Bechtel, and as you may know, Bechtel is one of the 2 largest construction engineering firms in the United States. And he worked on a number of projects, subway extension in Toronto, and the Underground Railway in London, and the Big Dig project in Boston, Massachusetts. And he said the following, and I'll quote him: "The need to operate as a whole team and be aligned on the key objectives cannot be understated. Leadership direction, collaborative attitudes, and contract terms must all encourage participants at every level to always share the truth and do what is in the best interest of the people. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier when we went over the table of contents, there is a case study, complex case study, and there's a lot that went wrong on the project, and we refer to them as contributing factor. However, among that subset of items, there are just a couple of items that were key drivers to the outcome of the project that you could predict. The project would be a failure based on those key drivers. And the challenge to the class is to present those items that engineered, if you will, a failed megaproject. And then each team gets up in front of the class, presents their findings. And then we have a section called Additional Insights into Successful Megaprojects. And I've just got a couple slides. This is based on a recent book. All the slides aren't from the book, but many are the techniques from the book. And this is a picture of a normal distribution. So if you've taken statistics courses in the past, this will be familiar. And I just want to point out where it says fat tail. So these are the two ends of the distribution. So on the top, you see a fatter tail distribution, and below that, you see a thinner tail distribution. So why is this important? So for normal or thin-tailed projects, averages are meaningful. So for example, some of the statistics, are you within 25% of schedule or cost? Those are meaningful. Also for normal or thin-tailed projects, contingencies on projects are relevant. And as you probably know, a contingency is where you set aside money in a budget to be able to spend where you have variances, okay, or things that didn't go well. However, the majority of mega projects are not thin-tailed, they're fat-tailed. So what does that mean? Project outcomes averages are meaningless for fat-tailed mega projects, and for fat-tailed projects, project outcome statistics are meaningless. And what happens is fat-tailed mega projects, when they go wrong, they go disastrously wrong. And so another author had come up with some examples of what are some causes for fat-tail behaviors. First is underestimation or refusal to acknowledge properly uncertainty. So you have more uncertainty in mega projects than you do in regular projects, and how we deal with that is critically important. The second item is stakeholder neglect, mismanagement, or what I like to call lack of stakeholder alignment. If the stakeholders are not working collaboratively together towards a common goal, we have problems, okay? And the project will have problems. And the last is this third one is inflexible contractor management. Again, there needs to be transparency between the parties, honesty, and often they need to be bid properly. In other words, the bid has to reflect, for example, the extent of the design completion. So, the second part of this second to the last section, we cover a dramatically different mega project, and here's just a picture. And so this mega project I present in PowerPoint slides, so the class doesn't need to read a second project case study. And this is the construction of Heathrow Airport in the UK in London. It's Terminal 5, which was a phenomenal success. And so we cover that. And then one of the last major activities is the class gets back into their group teams, same teams that worked in the case study, and they compare and contrast the case study with the Heathrow Terminal 5 project and pull out what made one project successful and conversely what made the other project unsuccessful. And with that understanding, you should be able to go back to your organizations and provide your organizations with the insights in order to help ensure a successful mega project. And the very last section is a couple slides on summary and conclusions of the class. I hope you find Megaprojects interesting. I find it fascinating, and I'm hoping you will decide to come participate in our program and attend the Megaprojects class. Thank you for listening.